The portal circumstance, Castro has been selected as a new middle school site location. We need to determine what the reassignment options are for the Castro staff and students. We need to address the impacts that we talked about earlier, and then we need to determine, determine when actually the schools should close. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. That was great. Really thorough. Thank you, Mr. Collins, also. Mr. O'Hara, public comment?
President Pfeiffer, we have 10 requests to address the board.
2 minutes each, please.
Robert Brower, Charles Schwartz, Lynn Bailey.
Did you get the handout? Well, I can't start until they have the handout. I mean, this isn't fair, starting the clock now. Come on. I've been here since 6 o'clock, and to start the clock early is just incredibly unfair. This is the CEQA process flowchart. At the top, you see it says the California Environmental Quality Act. That means that CEQA is a law. It's in the Public Resources Code. If you look at this chart, you only need to go down the middle with your finger until you come to the last large rectangle. In the middle, it's called Decision on Project. What that means is every single box that precedes that in the column must be completed until you have actually the legal right to make the decision on the project. That means you cannot decide this issue today or next meeting or the meeting after. You cannot make that decision until after the CEQA process is complete. Now, you were just told the CEQA process is complete in August. Well, that's false. Because you notice the last box on the lower right-hand column is Notice of Determination with County Clerk. That starts the statute of limitations for judicial review, which is part of the law. The court gets to review this. Now, Cougar Field, which you may have heard about, the judicial review was filed by the city of El Cerrito on July 24th of 2007. They still don't have a hearing date. Cougar Field, which in everybody's view is a relatively simple judicial review, will not take place for another 3 or 4 or 5 months. So you have to add a year on what he told you for the judicial review, which is part of the law. So it would be a serious violation of the law to make this decision before you get the CEQA process complete. Thank you.
Charles Schwartz, Lynn Bailey, Sharon Farrell.
My name is Charles Schwartz, and I worked on CEQA documents for the Port of Oakland for nearly 10 years. At your meeting on November 7th, 2007, the school board made the Castro School site the lead candidate location for relocation of Portola Middle School. Consequently, any decisions about what to do with Castro Elementary School and when to do it is intrinsically tied to the CEQA process that must be completed for the Portola relocation project. That CEQA process must be completed before any decisions are made about what to do with Castro School and when. It is against the law to implement any part of a project before the statute of limits for legal challenges to a project's CEQA documents and process has expired. To close Castro before the CEQA process is completed for the Portola relocation project would constitute piecemealing. Such a segmentation action is a sure way to lose a court challenge to your CEQA process. A legally defensible CEQA process can never include actions already taken as part of a project. The CEQA process must be completed before taking action on any part of a project.
Lynn Bailey, Sharon Farrell, Mine Ternar Call.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Bailey. I'm a member of the Castro community, and of course, one of the things I came here to talk about tonight, contrary to my previous appearances here, is the full inclusion program at Castro School, and a lot of this was about it. Quite honestly, it was a little bit like watching multiple versions of an autopsy. It was not a very pleasant experience. I've been around the block a few times in education, and for about 33 years, I've been watching how districts and schools implement what they like to call full inclusion. Usually what I've seen is it's small in scope. Mostly it ends up being look good, feel good kind of thing, meets the bare minimum requirements of IEP. What you have at Castro is not that. What you have at Castro is the real deal. 33 years, it's the only one I've ever seen. So you're talking about taking that apart, and you don't put that together again quickly. Before I saw all this information, one thing I had looked at was the middle school at Castro questions and answers that was posted on the district website, I believe on December 14th. And I think three of the first four questions relate to full inclusion, and a couple caught my eye. One is number 2. Will other school sites be fully open to accepting full inclusion children? And the answer to that was, many of our schools and teachers welcome the richness of full inclusion. It goes on to say that schools that support full inclusion will be selected for the relocation of the students. I really didn't see anything up here tonight that said anything about whether there are sites that accept full inclusion or welcome full inclusion. So it starts reminding me of what I've seen for 33 years. Feel good, look good, slice it, dice it, put it wherever. The other main thing I came to talk to you about tonight is just really Castro as a whole, because this is such a transparent program. And so I just want to say a very few quick things about Castro as a whole that I just noted with a quick look at the Accountability Progress Report that was just updated in November. And I noticed that Castro achieved an API of 755. I noticed that was a 17-point gain, more than 3 times its target. I noticed that only 11 out of 36 district elementary schools that had APIs for this last year achieved any higher, and 24 achieved lower. I noticed in particular that the socioeconomically disadvantaged students at Castro achieved 29 points, which is 5 times their growth, 6 times the school target. That's incredible. I also noticed that over the last...
Please conclude your remarks, sir.
Congratulations to the staff and students of Castro Elementary School. I think you got some great things going. I think you deserve some praise for the achievement that you have made.
Sharon Farrell, Mine Ternar Call, Martin Snyder.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Farrell. First of all, I'd like to thank the board and the district for undertaking an environmental impact report. It's good to know that you recognize the extent and scope of this project as you've rewritten in your scope of work. I'd like to emphasize a few points. First is that the purpose of CEQA is to assess the impacts of a proposed project before implementation. And the reason I bring that up is in relationship to tonight's conversation and discussion. I'd like to stress that the board will understand that CEQA is a linear process, and it would not be legal to implement any part of the proposed project until the CEQA process is complete, including the decision that you've begun undertaking tonight. It would be a violation to either piecemeal the project or to implement any part of the project before the environmental document has been certified and survived any court hearings or challenges. Closing Castro at this time would be considered as piecemealing the project and would likely result in a lawsuit. CEQA is never completed ex post facto. It must always be completed first with implementation following. And the reason I share this tonight is we're very concerned that the board and the district is undertaking this process in a piecemeal approach, and that making this decision tonight or at any point before the CEQA process is ended will result in something that is not legal and is in violation of CEQA. I also would like just to address a few comments presented tonight. I think that the board should consider that the points made by Mr. Edmondson regarding delaying the closure are very valid. The first point was we don't know the outcome of CEQA. And I think to be able to undertake this conversation without knowing that outcome, Castro may not be the middle school location, would be pre-decisional, and again, piecemealing the project. I also take a little offense at the divisive behavior that was insinuated, community against one another. I think it should be made clear that a lot of the divisive behavior that you may be witnessing between communities has been the result of the non-transparent communication.
Please conclude your
that
remarks.
I am. Thank you. That the board has delivered continually during these meetings. If the board would like to not see divisive behavior, I recognize that it would be much more prudent to have more
Your time
transparent
has expired.
communication.
Please leave the podium.
Mine Tenar Call, Martin Snyder, Gretchen Borg.
Thank you. I am the parent of a child with special needs. I did not plan on having a child with special needs, so I met with all the challenges later on, and Castro was the only solution. We visited many schools in the district. We met some wonderful teachers, but a school environment that was fully accepting a student with special needs while addressing those needs in an excellent way, we could not find that anywhere other than Castro. If you meet my daughter today, unless you spend a lot of time with her, you may not even recognize that she's a special needs child. And that is the miracle of Castro School. In her behavior, she does not know that she's special needs. I fear that she will be sent to an environment where she might be labeled, her needs may not be addressed, she might have to be bused to an environment where she needs to get services, which means she would lose time from the academic hours. So none of these things, none of those kinds of impact that might happen, none of it has been really thoroughly researched yet. I understand that there are certain arguments for different deadlines for closure, but the real impact has not really been researched. So that is my main concern, that I would hope that the board would really look into what's going to happen to these students. The other thing is, as a voter, as a taxpayer, and as a parent, I voted for Measure J. Castro School was listed as one of the specific sites for rebuilding. I understand that at some point, Measure J money got reallocated. I don't know how and when it happened, but when I voted for it with the conviction that it would be spent for its intended purpose. So right now I'm in serious, I have serious concerns for my daughter, and also for the fact that as a taxpayer I voted for something and the promise is not fulfilled. Thank you.
Martin Snyder, Gretchen Borg, Greg Chang.
Good evening. I concur with the previous speakers who said at this time it's premature to consider closing Castro School when a CEQA consultant has yet to be hired and certainly not even begun work on preparing an environmental impact report for the Portlet closure and relocation. The closure of Castro is instrumental and intrinsic to this process, as described in the board's scope of work for the CEQA consultant. All aspects of this process must be considered simultaneously and as a whole. A timetable for Castro closure at this juncture would circumvent this legal and technical process. Moreover, the district has not sufficiently developed the logistics and community engagement necessary to affect the diaspora of Castro attendance area and special ed kids to yet uncharted lands. This interaction, planning, and community involvement was promised explicitly and implicitly by the district on its website and in public meetings. The last thing we want to see in our neighborhood is a boarded up vandalism magnet while the portal issue awaits resolution. This resolution will certainly take us past Election Day, November 2008. Thank you very much.
Gretchen Borg, Greg Chang, David Van Hoy.
Hi, my son attends Castro, and he's a full inclusion child. He has autism. And we were guinea pigs for full inclusion at the Murphy School 3 years ago. It's like a special stew. You have to have a regular ed teacher that is willing to embrace that child and structure the, scaffold the instruction. You need to have a full inclusion specialist there to help the child and help the parent and help the regular ed teacher. Moving a SH class, like Mr. Collins was showing you, that's usually all severely handicapped children that aren't really in a regular ed classroom. That's like comparing apples and oranges. Full inclusion is extremely different than an SH classroom. These are 6 regular ed classrooms with SH children in them. The regular ed teachers are key to this equation. I agree with the previous speakers. CEQA, of course, has to be honored, but I think we need to look at what we have in the district already and move all 6 classrooms with all staff present, your aides, your special ed, full inclusion specialists, and your regular ed teachers. And I'm afraid that we're losing people already because of fear. They're looking around. This is an incredible institutional memory that we have. This is a great school. This is a great program, and we've saved a lot of money by not sending our kids to private schools because this is a good program. My son's been to 3 different schools in this district because he has autism. We were so grateful to get the Castro placement, and it has worked. They used to call me every day at noon to come get my kid. They don't do that anymore. So please consider that. Consider the regular ed teachers too, and consider that it's also very different than an SH move. Thank you.
Greg Chang, David Van Hoy, Jill Wolkenfeld.
Hi, I'm a Fairmont parent, and the question was raised of whether the neighboring schools would be welcoming of the special needs children. And based on my conversations with the staff and teachers at Fairmont, I would say they would be very welcoming. And I myself as a parent would also be very welcoming. So I would think that if you are going down the path of this process, that Fairmont would be the ideal place for the relocation and not Harding. Also, based on what I saw on the map, Harding doesn't really border the Castro attendance area. It looked like it was just about 1 block only, whereas Fairmont shares a longer border, so I think it's more convenient geographically located. And being that we are from Fairmont, we have been in this situation before of facing the guillotine, and I can tell you that the uncertainty itself was extremely devastating. It really corroded our school climate. It was very, very hard for the teachers. So prolonging the agony is really not something that I would recommend, having gone through it before myself. And now, I don't know much about CEQA. I'm definitely not an expert on it, but Cougar Field was mentioned. I can tell you Cougar Field today has been ripped up and is under construction by all signs. They got a lot of heavy construction equipment out there. I ride my bike by there almost every day. So I don't know, maybe what has been said, I'm not sure how it is consistent with that fact. And so I would say that maybe the school closure can somehow be separated from the plan to build a middle school, because people don't want to live in an environment of uncertainty, having gone through it before. Thank you.
David Van Hoy, Jill Wolkenfeld.
Thank you. I'm a parent at Castro School as well, and probably a little different than many of the parents here in that I have the resources to be able to send my child other places. But we did choose to move to this district specifically because of the Castro program. And I find it to be unbelievable that you could take a program like that and move it without any real time and planning. I build large facilities and television studios, and it takes years to move a program that would include even 50 people. The fact that you guys believe you can do that and not impact these children in a few months seems quite impossible. You can't even build a school in years. Beyond that, clearly the process does need to be followed. There is a legal process. But the worst part about watching this tonight has been watching Mr. Ramsey, who clearly doesn't care. Watching his body language during this presentation has been unbelievable. These are our children. These are why we're here. This is why I pay taxes, and why, as other people pointed out tonight, we voted for measures which were intended to keep these schools open. So I hope you will consider that, and I hope you will think about it clearly. And whatever the process is, it needs to be clearly planned. As for prolonging it, I understand the self-interest of the Fairmont people. Clearly, they don't want to be back on the block again, and I understand that. But I also believe that you do need to consider all of it. Thank you.
Jill Wolkenfeld.
Hi, Jill Wolkenfeld. I work for West Contra Costa Unified School District in special education, but more as a medical special education. With Arinda, I work with special education students. I work in a special day class. I've worked at 2 of the schools, the middle school and an elementary level school. I've worked on over 80 IEPs. When Steve mentioned IEPs, that is very time consuming. And the parents have rights. The parents have a lot of rights. So that's something to take into consideration, are those IEPs. If they want to fight, you're looking for a fight. But mainly the point I want to get to is that what I've learned as working with these children, we really, as an aide, need to get to know the children, and they need to get to know us. And the aides aren't paid very well. So you said the teachers were willing to move. I don't know about your aides, because we do it for several reasons, the people that work with special education children. I just wanted to give a little 2 cents. It's a long night, so thank you.
President Pfeiffer, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. So fortunately, this is a discussion item. We don't need to make any decisions tonight. So let's just take a couple passes. Mr. O'Connor?
Sorry, I'll just start since I'm almost agreeing with a lot of the speakers. I'll just start. One of them stated that it takes a regular teacher who is willing to accept the full inclusion program. But it doesn't just take, from what I've heard, it doesn't take just one teacher, it takes an entire school. And even if they say they can be accepting, they're not always accepting once the special ed students get into their classes. This is kind of, I can say this from family experience. My little brother was in special inclusion at Castro for 8 years. So my family knows a little bit. And it's not, I just want you to know, it's not a program that can just be moved and then over a couple of years it can be rebuilt. It takes maybe as long as a decade if you can manage to do it at all. So if you really want to move a full inclusion program, it might work, but it's going to take a lot of work, more than just saying, well, here's the available space, we have the room, and these teachers say yes. It takes more than that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsey?
Yeah, thank you. I thought a lot of speakers made a lot of good points, and a couple questions I had for staff is the timeline around this flow chart and the impacts if I balance what you lose versus what you gain. If it turns out that we make an error, then is it worth the proposed $285,000 in savings that one would anticipate? So I'd like just to have some information legally. I don't think you can answer it today because I would have had the information. I mean, just bring it back at some point if you, just about this process in terms of the legality, that as we may understand it. I found it interesting that the speaker mentioned that they travel and see that there's already some type of construction taking place at Cougar Field, so maybe you can find out what's going on with that situation and give us some heads up. I agree with Kellen about the fact that the full inclusion program is not something that you can just take and then relocate. It's different cultures, different communities, different situations, different dynamics, different students, different orientation in terms of having past practice and experience that's been built up through generations of students going through and understanding what the expectation is when they go in. I always believe it's unfair to communities to try to say, oh, don't worry, we're going to give you the same thing somewhere else. I think that's really dismissive of the fact that it just can't, it's unlikely that it's going to happen, and more realistic conversations need to be had. I think, though, that there is some benefit to saying that you need to make a decision, you need to be definitive if it does not impact or affect the legality of this, because I think people need to bring closure to something and then move on. You need to do that, because the longer you linger, the uncertainty, as we've heard, people are at other making choices. You need to bring closure to things and then start anew. To prolong or delay can only cause more problems. And I think that if we do that, the better it'll be. I will say that I don't have any other further comments other than I work very hard to serve on this Board of Education. I put a lot of time in. I listen. I go to places. And I find it interesting that I'm singled out for, quote unquote, not listening when I heard every word. When a board member left today and said he wasn't going to even participate because of their own personal, I noticed I was singled out and made a statement of. There was no statement made about somebody who chose not to even be here. So I just find it very unfortunate that individuals in the public feel like they can take pot shots at board members and individuals. I'm a human being too. I'm here to listen. I pay attention. As a matter of fact, the CEQA process got changed at the facility subcommittee because of my work, not anybody else's work, because I took staff on and made the changes that you see reflected tonight. So, you know, it's just really difficult to continue to serve after 15 years of giving so much that you hear comments like that. And that's why people don't want to serve. It's 11:30 at night. We've been here since 5 o'clock, and I've been in court all day. And then I'm going to be here probably another hour. It just really gets to individuals when this kind of behavior, it doesn't model good behavior. And I did pay attention, and I did answer the questions, and I hope you will apologize when I see you at the end of the night.
Ms. Cronenberg.
This has been a difficult process from the beginning, and it continues to be a difficult process now. The question I have, first question, is the issue around whether or not closing the school is piecemeal under the CEQA system, whether or not we would somehow be criticized for being piecemeal. And that was brought up by more than one person. I don't know if that's true, we would be less able to withstand a court attack. I don't know. I'd like to know that. The thing that was compelling to me, there's not so many things, but one of them is that what we're talking about, it's interesting, we're talking about essentially the special ed needs of 23 children. And those children will have to find another place, and that place will be different. And I agree, it will be different. But it's different already, and I think that's the problem that Mr. Chang brought up. It's different already. You've got the signs in the community. It's different already that teachers are looking seriously at making changes. It's different already because people are making different choices about whether or not to send their children there. And it became different when we made the decision. Somewhere had to become different when we made the decision, and that's what happened. My hope is that we can do something and be as expeditious as possible. I want to know the way to make it happen as quickly as we can make it happen. That's important to me. I think that if we do that, at least we will have a sense of certainty. But I don't know whether or not we can do that. That's why I want to know that from our legal advisors and understand really the implications of the CEQA process. That's it for now.
Ms.
I'm concerned about the CEQA report as well, the legality of it. But one of my main concerns would be that the 23 students that have IUPs, that their needs are met. I don't know if you're aware of what that process is. I have done inclusion and mainstreaming, and you're talking about many, many hours of work. And so the importance of that to me is the priority, that if we are in the process of deciding that we're going to move those students this year, that we should already be at the process where we're evaluating the school and looking at what the students' needs are, what programs they need, and how those things will be implemented into the student's IUP. As well, by law, any parent who has an IUP has a right to disagree with what you place in the IUP. So whether or not you say that this is what you want for that student, if that parent does not want that, they have the legal right to disagree with that, and the district has a responsibility